Hello. Hey, Megan Vaughn, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Well, I'm well. It's Kelly Guest along with Megan Vaughn today. We are Colleen Bertino-less
We are.
on this edition of the Great Northern Sex Cast. So, where is she again?
Um, Canada?
That's right. She's road tripping.
Yes, she was going up through Canada over to Seattle or
Yeah,
something.
Portland. I don't know, something like that. Well, we
I
hope
can't keep it straight.
Yeah. Well, we hope she's having fun, and we look forward to her triumphant return next week. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. First off, though, real quick, I mean, we're getting very, very, very close to Pride Week.
We
Here.
are, yes.
How are all the preparations going around Fantasy Gifts?
Oh, I think they're going pretty well. I think. You'd have to ask the people in charge. I hope.
Yeah. Now, do you work Pride? Do you go
I usually don't, but I will this year. And hopefully I'll make it through. I'm a delicate flower, and I wilt in the summer heat, so I've always tried to avoid it. But it'll be good this year. I'll go out and be able to meet all the smiley, happy people, and hopefully sell them some sex toys and give them some free stuff. So
for sure.
that's always fun.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of that, one company that I know that everybody at the Great Northern Sex Cast and for sure Fantasy Gifts is really familiar with is Lilo.
Yes. Yeah.
Lilo is a big. Can you give everybody just who hasn't heard us bring that up again, just a quick rundown of what Lilo is?
They are a very fancy toy line. So they were kind of one of the first high-end luxury rechargeable toys.
Okay. Well, they have come out with a line of. Well, they're sort of putting their name on a new brand of condoms. Have you heard of this? I almost said condos. Condom. Have you heard of the Hex?
No, I haven't.
Okay, this is neat. They come in all these really different colors and things like that. And there's like 3 articles that popped out about those today. One of which was actually published in Teen Vogue, saying, "Hey, with these now, you have no excuse not to use condoms." And basically, they've come out with it's a different technology. That's why it's called Hex, and it really has to do with how the latex is fashioned. They're thinner and they're designed for way more comfort for the male that has the condom around his member. So it's really kind of interesting. And there's all these fun quotes from the founder, Philippe Sadiq. And he said, this is a razor thin membrane. You'll feel more friction, reduce slippage, and reduce breakage. So the Lilo Hex, look for those. They're supposed to be the absolute latest and greatest in the condom world. And it looks like they come in every imaginable bloomin' color.
Nice. Well, that is definitely good. I mean, I know condoms have not changed much over the years. So anything that can convince more people to wear them is a good thing.
For sure. Now, everybody's just going to have to deal with the fact that I had to bring in a box of Kleenex with me today, and I will make every effort not to snot on the microphone today. But, I feel like we can't even start the show today without, because we mentioned Pride. Pride's coming up without just even giving a nod to the horrible tragedy that occurred over the last weekend in Orlando. The witness accounts are coming out today, and it's. I didn't think I could feel any more horror than I already did. And just hearing these people speak about it, it's, and I hate it. I hate it. I mean, they're calling it what it is, the worst mass shooting in U.S. history. But I feel like when we brand things like that it motivates other crazy people.
Right. And also, that's not, I think that's one of the many gray areas that they've been using in reporting this. I know there's a lot of people who would argue, say, the massacre at Wounded Knee was the worst mass shooting in history.
Yeah.
Because that was, not part of a war. It was unrelated. So even that statement has, this whole thing has been very, a lot of misinformation leading to anger, and like you said, it just fuels more of these kind of actions, and that is kind of don't give them a other crazies a goal,
right?
Too
right, yeah, and it's interesting too. I'm not sure if every single news outlet is doing this, but a lot of them, I thought this was kind of fascinating. They are not counting the shooter as among the victims. They're saying 49 victims.
Oh,
And the shooter, they're separating
okay.
it. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's all hair splitting. It's a horrible, horrible tragedy. And I just felt like we couldn't talk about anything else that's making news of any sort, even the funny shit that we talk about here on the Great Northern Sex Cast, without just saying how terribly, terribly saddened we are by
Mm-hmm.
this whole particular thing. And the fact, that there was an angle targeting homosexuals about it too. It's all insidious, regardless of who was dead. But it's awful. Okay, on to other assholes. Brock Turner. Real quick, there's some funny Brock Turner stuff here today. I got tickled about this, and the Facebook page for it is in fact down. But Brock Turner, we talked about him last week. If you don't know, if you've been under a rock and don't know who he is, he's the guy who raped an unconscious woman in Northern California, the Stanford student, and got a 6-month sentence, and everybody's just up in arms. And by the way, that judge last week, he got his election back, but they're still trying to recall him. It'll be interesting to see how this goes. But this self-professed witch participated in a mass hexing ceremony designed to make him impotent, basically. So
I hope it works.
quite yes. And they also wanted to make the lives of Turner, his father, and the judge miserable for the rest of their lives. Alrighty then. So the event page has come down. I think Facebook objected to that. But
Of course they did.
Of course they did. The other thing is, with regard to that, X-Hamster, and Meg, you found this. Go ahead and set this one up because you read this one first, and I think it's great.
Yeah, X-Hamster is, well, if nothing else, they are the top porn site to get themselves into the news.
Yeah, they've done
So
a great
that's
job.
something. But yeah, they actually have taken down any simulated rape videos on their website. And as users upload, they also will screen them. And if there's anything that looks non-consensual, they have refused to keep it on the site. And actually, if you Google, or not Google, sorry, Google, X-Hamster search their site and look for particular keywords such as rape and non-consent, it brings you to a page that says, essentially, it might be time that you seek professional help. And then
Does it really?
Yes, and they have a link to a website that is meant for counseling of people who have these urges.
Wow.
So it's really tricky. I'm a little more torn on this one than I thought I would be.
No kidding. Why?
Because in theory, you're like, yeah, no rape porn. Obvi, that makes sense. But then I always feel a little weird going into saying what someone can enjoy in their own home that does not actually, because the women in these videos, generally they're not being raped. It is, it's a scene, it's a setup, it's a fantasy.
Yeah.
So to say you are not allowed to look at this particular fetish, even if it's not done illegally, it always is a little gray, but I do appreciate at least that they're putting up links to like counseling and that sort of stuff instead of just mocking these people.
Yeah.
But I know how it is. We at Fantasy Gifts actually have a very similar rule. We don't get in movies that are simulated rape either. Some of our bondage probably can toe the line a little bit, but we because I remember one time back when I was working at a store still, we got in a movie. It was a bondage movie, and the plot of the film was a guy goes to a sex shop, ties up the female clerk working at the sex shop, drags her to the basement, and rapes her.
Oh, God.
And the movie came in. I called the video office, and I was like, I am not selling this video. There is no way. I don't feel comfortable selling it to anyone, because I'd have to give them the stink eye.
Yeah.
When I, take a mental note, get their description if they buy it.
Did it slip through the cracks and kind of not, yeah?
I think it did. It slipped through, and they ended up taking it out, and we haven't gotten any more from that. Like, there was a whole series, and we haven't gotten any more. So, and I think perhaps, too, the older DVD buyers were not probably as aware and as conscious to be on the lookout for these sort of things. But I think in particular, since I brought up that specific movie, they've been a lot better on and making sure that kind of stuff doesn't really get sold.
Yeah. Well, interesting. I mean, X Hamster, like you said, I mean, they are publicity geniuses. They have, they've got the Who Wants to Be a Porn Star reality show and stuff. And you watched it?
I was going to say, would you like a little review?
Yes, I would.
I had to email Kelly last night, like, oh my God, it's all free. You can watch it. Yeah, I just went to the X Hamster website, and it's all free to watch the episodes. There was probably about 5. I got through one of the Sex Factor. It is exactly what you think it is.
Bad amateur porn.
Yeah, well, not too amateur even. I was kind of surprised, So there was the 6. I think it was like 6 guys, 6 girls, and one of the caveats is they had never had sex on film, so they weren't like cam girls trying to make a name or have done amateur movies or that sort of stuff. Totally newbies to the industry, and they put them in a house. And there's like behind the scenes house drama kind of stuff. And then they have their competitions where they'll show everything. Like the end of the they did this girl versus guys competition on the one episode. And their very last task was called the blow off. So the girl had to give the guy a blowjob for 3 minutes. And if she can make him come, she wins. But if he manages to not come, then he wins.
Oh my God!
And they showed this whole thing.
That's actually hilarious. What was the score? How did everybody do?
Only one guy ended up not making it through. He came in the last 4 seconds or something, and it's just hilarious. It's set up just like all those other kind of competition shows. They show the reaction shots of the guys' team, and there's this one guy in slow motion, like no, like as he's coming. It was actually pretty entertaining, and I don't know. I think if you're into kind of those sort of trashy reality shows, heck, add this one onto the list because it can be a little more tittillating while it's at it.
Well, the blowjob competition is pretty funny. I mean, that's just whoever came up with that one. I think that's I have this a little bit further down in our outline, but since we're on the topic of porn, let's go ahead and talk about this. There's a video, Meg. I sent you the link this morning, so we can put this up on the Great Northern Sex Cast page. This is funny. This is people that are active in porn right now. And it's called Ask the Porn Star. And it's like, what would you be doing if you weren't doing porn? Mm-hmm. Now, I can tell you what some of them said, but it's so much funnier to watch. Most of it's girls sitting there going, oh, man, geez, I don't know. Well, and one of them goes, I guess I'd go back to being a librarian. And one of them was a nanny. A couple of them were CPAs. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was like hysterically funny. So you should just, it's worth it. I mean, it says on there not safe for work, but honestly, I didn't see anything that was, they're just the fact that they're talking about porn. So that's probably,
sure. Yeah.
But it's not really filthy per se, but it's just a stitch to see these people as themselves out of character going, oh man. I mean, it's just, yes.
These girls had dreams too.
Oh my God.
Although some of their dreams are to be porn stars. So life worked out just the way they wanted.
Yeah, and you know what? It's super, super funny the way that they, when they're asked the questions and stuff, Meg, they're like, oh, and they're so matter of fact about that's what they do. It's like, it's so, and I'm not, it's porn. I'm not squeamish, but I don't know. You know what I'm saying, right? It's just funny. I mean,
I imagine it's like an outsider coming into the office,
yeah.
at Fantasy Gifts. We're like, oh, hey, did you get through that entire box of 10-inch dicks?
Yeah.
And someone else is going to be, excuse me, what did you just say? And it's just so blasé to us,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a funny video. It's kind of, if it'll brighten your mood if you haven't seen it. I got very tickled over my coffee watching that. So Kim Cattrall of Sex and the City fame, it's kind of funny. She was on Good Morning Britain with Piers Morgan, and apparently he's got a bit of a crush on her, and I guess she's been suffering really bad from insomnia, and she was talking about this really bad battle that she'd had, and how she was getting like 3 hours of sleep, and she had to like take a break from a show that she was doing because she said just everything in her life got devalued, and she wants to talk about that. Well, he's like, well, so if you weren't sleeping, were you getting it? He had to bring it back around to that, and he took her a little bit by surprise, and she's like, I knew you were going to ask that, and stuff. But she, I think, kind of really wanted to talk about insomnia type of thing. But, I suppose when that's your claim to fame.
You know what? Piers Morgan. I love that because this is the same guy who will continually shame Kim Kardashian on Twitter for posting nude selfies, and yet when he gets a attractive girl across the desk, just have sex all night. Yeah, I just literally licked the microphone.
Oh, how'd that go?
Oh, great! Sorry, next show on Alive and Social Network.
Well, here's the other thing. A lot of people probably don't know this about Kim Cattrall. Do you know that she actually is British? That she was born there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's two interesting Kim Cattrall facts. And she was the last starlet ever signed to a Hollywood contract as they used to be defined.
Oh,
remember
the
a studio contract?
system?
Yeah, she was the last one. So those are her kind of two things. So yeah, but Piers Morgan getting all goofy on her.
That's interesting though that she's known for television.
Yeah, and her she did some really lame ass movies back in the day. She did the one with Andrew McCarthy where she's the mannequin. I think it's called Mannequin.
Oh,
that's her.
Lame? I don't know about that.
Did you like that movie?
Yeah, of course.
It was kind of cute actually. But God, she was such a freaking stunner. She's still amazing looking, but boy, as a young woman, holy cow. Yeah, she's hottie. And she's got to be 60 by now. Gotta be.
Yeah.
And she looked amazing. So Tokyo, whatever. I'm all about private enterprise. Just want to throw this one out here. And there's a couple, whose opinion, in addition to Colleen's, who I always appreciate, because I just love her take on absolutely everything, is Liz. I would love to know what Liz would have to say about this one, because I would imagine that she would go off, well, possibly batshit about this one. So there's a restaurant that's coming up in Tokyo. It's going to be for naked dining, okay? Did you hear it?
I have heard about this.
Yeah.
It's a terrible idea.
Rita is called the restaurant. And you have to check your clothes and put on paper undergarments. So it's like, the lobster bib on your ass. Like, how much fun is that? Really?
Don't. Crinkly and stiff, you know?
Yeah, or a toilet seat cover.
Right.
It's like, but it costs like $750 for a reservation. You pay just to go.
Jesus.
And then the dinners are a couple $100
Just
each.
eat naked at your house.
You think?
For free.
I know. But here's the thing. This is what I think would send Liz absolutely, soaring. If you're overweight, they won't let you in. And they are also discriminating against older people as well. So basically, it's going to be like the red line trying to get into studio, the rope,
right.
Studio 54
Can't
days.
pass the velvet rope. So you have to be hot and rich to afford $750.
Right, yeah. And,
so what, Kim Cattrall wouldn't be able to make a reservation?
I don't know, but they, they're going to weigh you. If you look overweight, they're going to put you on it. If you are 33 pounds over the average weight for your height, you won't go in.
Oh my God!
Like who needs to pay money to be subjected to that?
Right.
And shamed. You could go to the doctor for that.
You know, it's funny because we do say that in a lot of like nudist colonies and such. You find that it's not often the people you want to be nude. It's not like a whole group of really sexy people who are playing volleyball naked. So it's interesting that they were preemptively like, all right, well, no fatzos, so we can have a nudie colony that actually is attractive for once. But I thought there was like dividers between the tables, so you couldn't really see it. So why would it matter?
I was so completely just taken aback by the whole thing. And but people will do anything as long as they'll sign up. They'll line up. It's weird.
I just can't get over the health code concerns.
That's why they have to wear paper on their uglies.
Oh man, paper's not going to do it.
There isn't enough
paper. Does not stop STIs. Just saying. You can't, wrap your dick in a Red Lobster bib and think that's going to be safe.
or sanitary.
I wonder if the cooks are clothed or they have to wear little like pube nets.
I know. Kind of like the beard nuts. That's funny. Okay, I'm gonna cough along up. So this is just something that I came across because you just can't not talk about the fact that this woman in Arkansas was driving down the road and a 4-foot snake dropped from her dashboard onto her feet while she was driving.
Oh God.
Oh yeah, she goes, I'm not a very flexible person, but my knees were around my chin. And then it crawled back up in there, and then it came back down, and then it ended up in the back seat. And there's a picture of animal control. She pulled over. Can you even imagine? And it was what kind of snake was it? Let me look here. It was a harmless one actually.
Oh sure.
Yeah, and
I don't think any snakes feel too harmless when they're dropping out of your dashboard.
Oh my God, 4 feet.
God,
4 feet.
I've almost driven myself off the road because there's been a spider in my car.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. I've almost driven my mom off the road when I was screaming because I thought there was a spider.
Okay, are you an arachnophobe too?
I am, yes.
I am severely arachnophobic.
Yes, I blame the movie Arachnophobia.
I couldn't watch it.
I saw it really young and never recovered.
Okay.
Apparently, it's a comedy, but
not to you.
It traumatized me for life.
No, I seriously don't like spiders. I have a nephew who's like 32, okay, and he's not a tiny dude. He's a strapping young man. Also, absolutely terrified of spiders. He screams. It's pretty funny shit. But in other snake news, and maybe I'm attracted to these stories because snakes are ever so slightly phallic, but we go to South Carolina. This is weird, and this one there's video. You should watch this. Dude comes home to Greenwood, South Carolina, and he said he just passed under his attic door, and then he kind of went in the kitchen, came back, and 2 huge snakes coming down from his ceiling, hanging there. Oh, and he said squirming in all their glory. This guy's kind of a riot. He said tongues were flashing and dangling and all this kind of stuff, and he said, I was in shock, but I thought my dad would really get a kick out of it, so I yanked out my phone and started shooting video, which is a true modern dude, right?
Yes, that's what you do now, shoot video.
And
deal with it later.
It's out there going crazy on social media. He managed to get, I guess he just dorked around with these snakes forever, finally got one outside, but the other one disappeared back into the house. It's still there somewhere.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And I guess they're what kind of snakes? Also another type of harmless snake. But he says he's sleeping with the lights on. Oh, black snakes. He's sleeping with the lights on and everything else. He goes, I actually think they're a benefit to have around your property, but I prefer it not be in my house.
Right, not in the house. I'm glad these weren't Australian stories. They probably all would have ended in death.
And people's balls being bitten.
Right.
Remember, we had a few of those in the last couple of weeks. There's a lot of weird stuff in the South this week, and not Florida, which is peculiar, as we know around here. So dude gets tagged for DUI, which is a bummer, but we shouldn't be doing that, right? 35-year-old guy, and he blew .117, so yeah, that's definitely beyond the legal limit. But the description of what he was wearing, I think, is what really is the best thing ever. It said, this is the cop writing this now, and you know how cops, if you ever look at your ticket, it's worse than a prescription. You can't fucking read it. But you just picture some macho cop in Tennessee writing down that this guy is wearing some kind of red mesh see-through hose. So I'm assuming that's fishnets. Okay. And this is a guy with a ribbon tied in his goatee and some kind of little skirt. But what they didn't discover until they got him down to the station was the chastity belt. And the key was still in the car that they impounded.
Oh, no.
So this ended up being kind of an arrest, thing, because they couldn't, finish the booking process because they couldn't unlock his junk.
Arrest and then a rescue.
Exactly.
That was definitely some forced femme going on there.
And it's so hysterically funny. They actually in the article, because this was not, one of my funny story sources. This was regular news source. So they had like a definition of what this would be for. And there's a quote in the middle. In modern times, there are typically 2 reasons chastity belts are purchased. The first is by fanatical Christian parents looking to literally lock down their children's masturbation habits. And the second is for pleasure purposes in a BDSM relationship. So they gave you the little primer there.
I'd say that's pretty accurate. Yeah.
locking down kids' junk. Who
We
knew?
sell quite a few of those, I must say.
Do you really?
Yep.
Like
we
for
sure
men
do.
or for women?
For men. Yeah, mostly we don't have, I'm sure online, fantasygiftsmn.com, we'd have some more chastity belts for women. But generally what we carry in stores are cock cages.
Okay.
Because it's usually the guy. Because I think that's part of the dominant submissive, where guys are already seen as more dominant. So it's the taking away their power,
Ability to.
Yeah, ability to get hard often, where you'll get a punishment if you get an erection, or there's people that they'll have to wear these things for a full weekend. And like I said, I'm sure it sounds like with this situation it was a forced femme. That's a big kink now too, where the men are, air quotes, forced to dress up like women by their significant others. So yeah, it sounds like they were having a fun time if they just didn't have to. You should have just kept it in the house.
Yeah, because there was a female companion that was hammered, but she didn't get arrested because she wasn't driving. But yeah.
It's better than the other chastity stories where they have to be, at least they knew where the key was still. So there was no saws or power tools involved in the removing.
Yes. Okay. So there's a story. I guess sex in chambers doesn't really hurt your reelection prospects in California if you're a judge. This is funny stuff. This is from where I was born, Orange County, California. This guy, he's been a Superior Court judge for 5 years. He did get censured in 2014 for boinking his intern and an attorney in chambers. And they were both once law students of this particular judge. He's also been criticized for attempting to help one of his sex partners get a job with the DA's office. And so he ran against this, his name is Scott Steiner. And he was challenged by a gal named Karen Schatzel. And he beat her 56% of the vote, which is not really a landslide, but I don't know. Little ethics issue there, maybe.
Who did he have sex with?
An attorney and an intern in his chambers.
Oh, yeah. Then there's a definite power play dynamic. I was like, if it was his wife or his girlfriend, let him have a little you're out of order, bang bang, have a little fun.
Well,
but
he can always bring his robe home,
right?
I
exactly.
mean,
It's the weird things like that. That I had I was dating a guy once who was a welder, and I kept trying to convince him to bring his welding mask home.
He did it every.
He didn't have it. I'm like, come on, that sounds fun. Yeah, so if you got a thing for robes and powdered wigs, maybe.
Yeah, oh no, for sure. Or gavel me, baby.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny stuff. So, there's a really funny article, and people just need to read this article because of the writer is so freaking hilarious. But it's like all the reasons we're not having sex. Okay.
Okay.
And this was out of New Jersey, or not New Jersey. God. I have a client in New Jersey, so it's on my mind. And we have fantasy gift stores in New Jersey, but no, New Zealand, big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Worlds away, in fact. No, this gal writes this hysterical article about, basically box sets, and we're binge watching too much TV. And it's so damn funny. She's mentioning all these really serious things. She's like, well, that one's not going to lead to getting laid. But, it's just funny stuff like Holocaust stuff and everything else, how she's pointing out that, yeah, you're not going to feel frisky after you put that one in. So, but she goes through and she talks about there being other reasons too, non-specific rage or specific rage, low-level anxiety, email checking, late-night tidying, and the big one being the opposite of sexy. And she talks about laying in her marital bed, ordering her 89-year-old dad a hernia truss online and asking her husband for tips on fit and different things. So she's basically saying we've got so many fucking distractions. We're not fucking.
Yeah.
And the way she writes it is hysterically funny. She's got just a wonderful style. So we'll post that.
Yeah, definitely.
But do you agree that we've got too many distractions, Meg? Look at this. Do you ever see, how often do you go out? And Carl and I, one night, we were sitting at a bar and there was couples all up and down the bar, and everybody but us had their faces in their phones.
Oh yeah, it's true. There is too much distraction, too much stuff to consume that by the end of the day you're just worn out, I think. That's something I definitely had to work on with my current relationship, because like, especially as like I do the social media, so I'm on my phone a lot for work. So I always try to really make a conscious effort to, quick peek here and there. But if we're hanging out, I don't really want either of us just sitting there on our phones, because then why are we hanging out? I can surf Facebook alone,
Right. Right. Yeah. No, it's something that we actually are going to have to consciously do, is unplug a little bit, and binge watching should be by appointment only.
Right.
You know what I
right.
mean? It shouldn't be the default thing. I don't know. I think, and that, that makes me think of, I'm hearing this more and more and more now. The whole sitting is the new smoking. Like, we've got to get off of our asses and move around and do stuff. Well, you might as well have sex if you're going to be doing that. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Speaking of this was really fascinating stuff. There's researchers in the UK have found a connection between math and sex, which I would think would be the most unsexy thing. I mean, if you put any sort of types of facts and figures in front of me, I'm not no.
Well, but I think you're really cute.
Okay, how come you're a little pie? Pythagorean theorem me. No, but this is the researchers looked. They were from the International Longevity Center in the UK. Found a link between the ability to perform math tasks later in life and the likelihood of having sex. There's some really interesting info here. They talk about. They call them. It's so cute. It's so British. Pensioners who can give the correct answer to a handful of moderately easy sums are twice as likely overall to be sexually active than those who struggled.
Oh, I'm screwed. Or not.
Yeah, so they've been charting the lives of thousands of people over 50 for 14 years to try to figure out the links between cognitive ability and financial status as well. And I think they're also there's an Alzheimer's angle to this. But this was kind of interesting. They also noted that people that could only manage one correct answer out of whatever the lot of questions was that they gave them had an average household savings of $18,000, but those who got 4 correct typically had over 100.
Oh, wow.
Interesting, right? And four times as likely to have made provisions for their own care later in life.
So they're rich and having more sex?
And more money.
Math,
sex, money. Okay, it's interesting.
Stay in school, kids.
No shit. 41% of those who got one or none of the questions right had sexual activity in the previous year, compared with 79% who answered 4 correctly. So double, literally double.
Definitely understand 2 + 2.
Yeah. Nice. And the last part of this that I'll mention, among people in their 80s, 1 in 5 of those who scored highly in the math test was still sexually active in their 80s.
Oh,
Woo-hoo!
that's awesome.
Yes.
We always hear that sex with the senior or between seniors is it's really on the rise.
Good for them. They just have to make sure they don't get STDs.
Yes,
because
that's also
that's been on the rise too. We've talked about that in retirement homes. It's a big deal in Florida. Big, huge. Arizona too. Okay, so we talked about spectrophilia. It was in one of our compilations of bizarre fetishes and things like that. Well, it's popped back up into the news from celebrities. So I got a couple things. Bobby Brown, the widow of Whitney Houston, is the latest to say that he has had a sexual encounter with a ghost. And I was trying to find out. No, in fact, it was not Whitney. He doesn't know who it was, but he was on 2020, and he bought a mansion in Georgia apparently, and he woke up and he was being mounted by a ghost. And he didn't give too many details, but he did emphatically state that he was not high, which needed to be mentioned, and any decent journalist would ask that question of him.
Right.
Back in April of 2014. Natasha Blasik got a lot of publicity. Do you remember this when this came out? She's a Ukrainian-born actress. She said she'd had 2 sexual encounters with a ghost and found it very, very pleasurable. And she talked about, she gives a lot of, detail there.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Keisha, the song Supernatural, she told Ryan Seacrest that was inspired by a romp with a ghost. For real.
Yeah. Spooky sex. I just wonder if it's not dreams. You know what I mean? It just seems so much more likely that it's sex dreams when you're not realizing that you're still, when you have the dreams and you feel like you wake up in a dream, but you're still actually asleep.
Yep.
Like that seems much more likely
To you. Yeah.
to me than rampant ghost sex. Also a concern, I don't think that these ghosts are asking consent.
Right.
It's not appropriate.
Well, see, there's that.
No means no, no matter which side of the veil that you're on.
There's a ghost researcher named Alexandra Holzer who says, there have been lots of reports of ghost sex throughout time. But she says that they feel, a lot of them that she tends to believe, say it's feeling pressure on them and penetration, but no warmth. It's very cold.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be kind of weird, wouldn't it?
That would be.
So there was some, I was surfing around just for some background on this because I thought it was kind of interesting. And this concept really goes back through history, though. It talks about stuff going back at least 20 to 2400 BC. So there was a couple of demons described on a tablet called the Sumerian King List. And they're described as visiting men and women nightly to impregnate humans with hybrid spawn. Now I'm very confused. But then there's other references throughout history going back 4,000 years into ancient Greece, too.
Yeah, well, and then there's like incubus and succubus, which are the, kind of creatures that have sex with you in the night. I suppose they're a little more like demons or something. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it makes sense. I mean, ghosts are nothing new, neither is sex, so it makes sense that they would combine the two. And I suppose if you could imagine a ghost could move things or throw things or manifest itself physically in some way, it's not that much of a stretch. I mean, if they're going to be hanging around, they'd probably rather have sex than bang pots and pans in your kitchen cupboards.
Yes. And apparently, I thought this was interesting because I'm kind of an English lit geek. There's a reference to this in the poem Beowulf.
Oh.
Also. It was kind of interesting.
Nice.
Yeah, so you can go back. I'm going to have to go read that, dig out some of my old stuff. I loved that. I just freaking love the old English literature stuff. It's fun. This is really kind of funny. Depending on how you were raised or what your parents' attitudes were on sex before marriage, I think a lot of parents start out saying, just don't do that. And then pretty soon, once you turn, a certain age, everybody knows that the jig's up. But, a lot of people kind of try to push that. Well, I found this article. I thought this was funny. Women who have had 9 premarital sex partners have lower divorce rates than women with only 2.
Oh, wow.
Think about that for just a minute.
I guess at that point you know what's out there and you don't feel like you're missing something.
Well, that's what I thought. So 3 to 9 partners prior to marriage is the sweet spot.
Okay.
And so, but then also they say there's a huge amount of marriage retention among women that completely abstained as well. So either 0 or 3 to 9. But that 1 to 2 is where people are like, shadow of a doubt, kind of hanging in there and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And this was from the National Survey of Family Growth. And they followed people from all the way from the 80s up into the 2000s to get this data.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's thorough.
Yeah, so it was pretty interesting, and they said that there was no way to get a big enough sample back at the time that they started this to see what the stats would be for same sex, but that'll have to be a future study because they just didn't have they didn't have the mainstream type of thing.
And you couldn't look at divorce rates back then either of same sex couples. So
yeah. This is also interesting. This study did also link religious observance and premarital sexual activity. Those with a fewer premarital sexual partners had higher church attendance. So I guess you could take away.
I wonder if that's the 0 spot. If you've had 0 people, it's because generally that could be faith-based. And so the stigma of divorce is already stronger within the faith.
Yeah. I mean, Now that you know what it's like, let me just throw this out there to you, because you're kind of in that chunk of human beings of a certain age that we like to pick your brain, the millennials. Now that you know what sex is about, and you've been there and done that, and all that other kind of stuff.
Oh, that's quite an assumption.
Well, you've admitted it, or else I wouldn't put you in this position.
Right.
Okay. No, but I guess my question is, going back, it's like if you could go back knowing what you know now, would you have any interest in abstinence, or would you do everything exactly the same way?
I would skip a few people.
Wouldn't we all?
But no, I would not. I mean, I could have. I was down that path. I was raised Catholic. All my friends and I couldn't get a date in high school because everyone assumed that I was planning on saving myself till marriage. And no, I don't. I wouldn't.
You wouldn't change it?
I didn't want to. I didn't do it then. I wouldn't do it again.
Yeah, I think you captured my feelings exactly. I'd probably skip a few,
right?
But yeah, there's a few that I could definitely pass on. But yeah, no, it's kind of an interesting question. Well, we really look forward to next week when Colleen returns. And Megan, you have been an admirable foil today for the Great Northern Sex Cast. We've got a lot of really funny. You got to watch the snake stuff, you guys. And definitely check out the porn video and possibly even X Hamster too. I'm going to check that show out. It's pretty good, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty entertaining. And that could be some binge watching that could lead to sex as opposed to distracting you from it. So
all right,
maybe a good partner show.
Words of wisdom from Meg. Okay, everybody, we'll be back at you next week.
Bye.